Today we have the pleasure of hearing from Lila Ashmore. This is Bruised Reads podcast number 5. So Lila, nice to see you this morning. Thank you for talking to us.
Nice to see you too.
I noticed that you're back at Harvard.
Yes, I am.
How'd that happen?
Because I asked Kay. I asked you to help me one last time, so I can get it right.
Well, we agreed, so it's up to you now. Where have you been the last couple of years?
Boy, I've been in a lot of really bad places.
Describe that.
I was just telling this young woman earlier that when I first became homeless here in Santa Paula, I ended up in Oxnard, and I was at the shelter, and then they had to close it down for a minute to redo it before we could go back. And in that time, I ended up, this gentleman says to me, "You want to take a shower? I can take you to my mom's." And I went there, and when I got there, he told me I couldn't leave. And about 5 days it took me to get back out of there. He started talking crazy, and he started kicking heroin, and I made my escape because I didn't think I was going to be able to get out. And that really started my events. He had stolen my ID. He had stolen everything from me. But I left with just what I had in my bag, and I ran. And that's kind of how it started out here where I went. And I ended up with the wrong people that used drugs, and so I used drugs, and I was on the street for quite a while. And then I called the shelter a year ago, February, and I asked Kay for help, and they let me in the shelter, and it's been up and down from there.
I didn't know that about you. Why did the shelter close? Was that COVID season?
No, that was before the COVID. That was in Oxnard. They were just redoing the armory, and it was still the armory. It was for the rainy weather. That was maybe 2019. Yeah, I think it was 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. And so they were only open for like 3 weeks during the heavy, heavy rains. And then they had to close it for like 3 weeks to get it ready for us to come back. And I managed to get back there, but that was only for a short bit.
I remember you living in a motorhome, though that would have been around 2019 because you parked it at Harvard.
That was after that whole thing. I managed to get back here to Santa Paula.
How did you get a motorhome?
I had someone that I knew was working at the old Travis tow yard, and they were dismantling some motorhomes. And there was one left, and they said, if you want it, you can have it. You just have to clean it up and take it. And so Travis Tow Yard gave it to me. That's how I got the motorhome.
And it worked for a little while.
It never ran for me because I couldn't get it fixed. I stayed. When they pulled it out of Travis Tow Yard, it was just on the street there, and Martha Brown, an amazing woman, called Kay and asked if you could help because I was going to get towed away.
And she's with the police department, right?
Yes.
So she was your friend during that time?
Yes, she was. And so she got me over to you.
So you have children, and you've had good relationships in your past. What was life like for you as a little girl?
Mostly it was good. I had a stepfather who was inappropriate with me from the time I was 8 till I was 17. So it's hard to say. At 18, he asked me if he had damaged me, and I told him yes. And my mother was told at that time that he had been doing that, but she chose to stay with him until he died. And after he had asked me if he damaged me, he spent the rest of his life trying to make it up to me. And I ended up forgiving him because it was a sickness. Because he did teach me a lot of really valuable things in life. He taught me, I remember being in 3rd grade and a girl pushed me down one day at school. And I came home all upset, and he told me, you never have to use your fists. You're smart. Use your words. And I have to say, thank God, because I have never been struck by a man or a woman in my entire life, because I've been able to talk my way out of it. And that was one of the valuable lessons he taught me, was to use my words to my brains.
So interesting, he would abuse you and yet somehow cared enough to give you a valuable life lesson. How do you explain that?
I don't know. I know that he loved me. And he was a good father mostly. Like I said, he taught me a lot of valuable lessons. And when I had a little girl, I made it completely clear to him that if he ever hurt her, there would be consequences. And he respected that. And I was there for him in the end when he was having issues getting around. I would go down, because I lived in Ventura and they lived in Simi Valley. And I would go down and take him to the doctors with my mom, and I was there at his last days.
Where was your mom in defending you when that was going on when you were 8?
She didn't know. She was at work, she worked because he had had a heart attack. And so he was disabled. And he would stay home and she would go to work. So, and I was afraid to tell her, and my sister ended up telling her, my older sister.
Why were you afraid?
I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure why I didn't tell my mom. Because I don't know. That I don't know.
Do you think she would not have believed you?
Possibly.
Yeah. So when you were 8, obviously you were in what, 3rd grade?
Yeah, I remember when it started, I was homesick from school. And they had a television in their bedroom, and I was watching television with my dad. That's when it started.
So do you think that affected your ability to have good relationships with men?
Yes, I do. Because when I was a teenager, I was very promiscuous.
Really?
And it was a long time with that behavior. And it broke up my marriage. And then I had a couple more really bad relationships. And I seemed to be attracted to the wrong type of a person. I have a bad picker, as I call it.
A bad picker. I've not heard that before. What kind of student were you?
I was a great student. I graduated with a 3.2 average. And
You finished high school?
Yep, graduated high school.
What were your hopes and dreams as a student that age?
I wanted to be just like my mother. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, because mostly she was. I wanted to be the housewife, the mom, and I got that. I did end up with that. And it was a good life for a long time. But then I found out that somebody that I picked, the last one that I had picked, was actually a monster in disguise. And he hurt my youngest child in ways that I had to make the choice of doing like my mom did and kind of ignoring it, or doing something about it. And so I did something about it, and that pretty much started my homelessness.
You did the right thing, though, to protect her.
Yes,
right?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. I chose her.
Good. How would that lead to homelessness?
Because I was a stay-at-home mom, and I had no, at the time I was 50 or almost 50 when I first found out. And because I didn't have regular jobs, I didn't have unemployment that I could apply for, I didn't have anything, I fell through the cracks. You know, I wasn't a senior, and I wasn't, you know, I didn't have options. I had no money coming in from anywhere, and he left the house because he had to leave the house, but I didn't have an income, and so he went to the owners of the home and took his name off the lease and put mine on it. Now I have no income, so I can't pay rent, so of course I lose the house.
Was your daughter with you then?
I sent her to her family in Taft because that was the right place for her.
Okay. How old was she then?
She was 17, or no, she was 19 then.
Do you have a relationship with her today?
Yes, I do.
Good.
Yes, I do. She's an amazing young woman.
Really? Do you know what her memories are of those days?
More and more memories are coming out that aren't good. I just found out recently, and it set me back because I feel terribly guilty that I didn't see, that I wasn't aware of the things that were going on right in front of my face.
Well, it's never too late to do the right thing. And so I know you've tried to do that in recent months, right?
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't blame me. She never has blamed me. But I still feel like I should have known something was wrong.
When did drugs become a part of your life?
The first time drugs became a part of my life, I was in my early 20s, and I got with a gentleman that was a biker, and he was a coke dealer. And I got arrested with him when I was like 26, I think. It was back in '89. And we got arrested for drug sales of cocaine. And I had to be away from my young daughter at the time for 6 months. She was 4 when we got arrested the first time. And then I did my time, and I went back to him. And we continued on the same road. And I got arrested again like 5 months before my probation was over, again with drugs in my pocket. And so that was 93, was my last drug arrest. And I promised her then I would not do drugs again in her young life. And I did the next 18 years clean. I had another child, raised my family, and I didn't start using again until I was 50 years old.
Do you remember the day you started using again and what was happening?
I was 50 years old. Well, it was like a week before my 50th birthday. And I had went to Taft to clear my head because I was in a relationship that was crazy. And I knew I needed out of it again. And I needed to get out. And so I went there to clear my head, and my family member it was through marriage, he wasn't blood family, offered it to me, and so I said yes, figuring, what the heck, maybe I'll get skinny. I thought I would lose some weight.
So is that true? Was it meth?
Yeah.
So it's true that people think it's a good weight loss method, right?
Back when I was with the biker, they called it crank, and you lost weight. You definitely lost weight. They used to make a joke and call it the Jenny Crank diet. But the crystal, it didn't work that way for me. I ended up putting on 50 pounds. Go figure.
So that was how many years ago?
That was 10 years ago now.
So you're how old now?
60.
Okay, so it's a new day for you?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what's happened since you've come back to Harvard Shelter. What's it been, a few days?
Yeah, it's been almost a week now.
Okay, I want you to brag a little bit about what your resolve has caused for you in a few days.
I have enrolled in online college for applied behavioral science. It's a 4-year program so I can become a therapist to help people. And I've been approved. I just have to get my financial aid situated. I have been approved for a car loan, which I'm excited about. It's just for a little car. I have had applied for a housing, and they put me on the waiting list for an apartment over on 4th Street in the senior apartments. I went and applied for IHSS, in-home support services, and I was fingerprinted, and I passed the fingerprinting, and I have orientation on the 10th to be able to help someone else that just needs companion work, or someone, just to help them out a little bit and get paid for it from the county. And I'm clean, and I plan to stay that way. I'm sure there's something else I can't remember. I have so much on my plate right now that I'm just trying to handle and take care of, and I'm happy about it.
It's a good plate.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I'm doing everything that it takes.
So it's May 1st, 2023. We're in Santa Paula, California, and Lila Ashmore has crossed over from one side of the table to the other. I really want to congratulate you. And obviously we're watching, and we're going to hold you accountable for every good decision you've made.
Because I've made some bad ones.
Yes, and we've been involved in some of those by having to watch the aftermath. Mm-hmm. And it's very disheartening for us to watch somebody we love stumble and fall. But the best advice you can give somebody who stumbles is what?
Get back up, brush yourself off, and look to the bigger picture.
Okay.
Look forward, because life isn't over. I'm 60 and it's just beginning for me. I'm going to college. Yeah. I'll be 60. By the time I graduate, I'll probably be 65 years old and starting a new career, because I want to be able to help women like myself that all of a sudden, they're a housewife or whatever their whole life, and then all of a sudden they're thrown into the big bad world. And you don't know what to do, because I've been terrified out there many, many times, terrified, because it's really hard.
Is there one great lesson that you've learned from all of this? The relationships with men, watching other people stumble, being with the wrong people. Can you describe in a few words the one great lesson?
There's been many lessons, but I think bringing God into my life and asking Him for help and saying, I give up, please help me. And to realize that being alone is okay. That's a big one for me.
You mean without a man?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't need a man to survive. And I want to say that about my girls. I have 3 daughters, and they are independent. They're self-sufficient. They don't depend on a man. And I taught them that. I just didn't know how to take my own advice. You know, I grew up differently. My mom taught us girls to, what she used to say is, use what God gave you. You need a man in your life. That's what my mom taught us. And because of that, I've made some really poor choices.
It's an amazing story, Lila. Just so you know, there are many people who love you. Yes, God loves you. He always did. But you didn't know that or believe it maybe until now.
I didn't love myself. And I still struggle with that. Is that I feel guilty.
Okay, can you start today leaving all that behind?
I'm really trying to do that.
Okay.
I'm really trying to forgive myself and to let go of things that I can't change.
If God has forgiven you, you can. Right. Thank you for telling your story. You've encouraged me, and I know you'll encourage many others with your courage, your wisdom, your insight, and above all, that tender heart of yours. So
That seems to get me in trouble most of the time, though, that tender heart.
it's okay. It will serve you well. Thank you, Lila.
Thank you. Thank you, Kay.